Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. This is one of the most anticipated test drives in the last year because I've had more people ask me in the last year, Sam, when are you going to test the Ridgeline? When are you going to test the Ridgeline? And I'll be honest, I've driven it quite a few times in the last year here and there, but this is the first time I've had an entire week to spend with it, driving it on the city streets, out on the highway, and out here in the desert to find out what it's really like to live with. Before we get out on the road, we're going to talk about styling just a little bit because that is a big topic with the Ridgeline. A lot of people say it just looks like a giant Pilot pickup. Well, it should, because it is based on the Honda Pilot crossover SUV. Basically, it is the same body shell. There are a few differences up front. This has a different grille, a completely different lower bumper design down there that's a little bit more square-jawed and truck-like, I'd say. This is a top of the line, so it has the LED headlights, which also have LED running lights built in here. It's just a little bit more of a trucky grille, but honestly, I'll agree, it does look a lot like the Pilot. As we come around the corner here, you do see there are fog lights down there in that lower fascia because we are on the top trim grade, and this also has an upgraded 18-inch wheel. As we look at the side here, there's a big difference between this Ridgeline and the last generation. First of all, this looks more like a traditional truck. You've actually got a cut line here between the cab and the cargo box. Now, the reality is structurally, this is all one piece underneath, just like before. But before, it had one piece of steel that tied from the cab into the bed. And so what they had to do is create this sort of angled buttress on the old truck to help brace it structurally so that we didn't have wrinkling, tearing, cracking, any kind of stress on the metal when the body of the truck would flex, whether it was under load or on a rough road. And that's just always been the thing with trucks. Because of the way they're designed, they need to move around structurally. So what they've done here is they've hung a separate piece of steel here on the side of the cargo box that allows that flex to occur. There's a rubber seal here, and it really just has the look of a traditional pickup truck now to go along with its newfound structural flexibility. Out here at the back of the Ridgeline, a few things I need to show you because there's a lot going on. Now, first of all, it's got a tailgate. All trucks have tailgates, nothing really new there. It opens to a composite cargo box that's 5 feet in length. Again, in this class, that's getting to be pretty commonplace. But what is quite different here is the fact that this tailgate actually has another trick to it. You can actually open it like a swing gate. Now, you might say, why would you want to do that? Well, one reason is so you can get in here closer to open the trunk that's also down here below the bed. Now look in there, that is a huge deep trunk. You can put a lot in there and it's lockable. It ties in with your power locking, so you can use a key or you can use it with the key fob when you lock and unlock the truck. So it's a safe place to store a lot of things. And best yet, and I've seen this at events, you can line this thing with ice and drinks and it can be a giant ice chest. There's a drain plug down there so you can drain it out afterwards, and it's completely watertight. That, I think, is very cool. And of course, there's also a 110 outlet over here, so if you're really tailgating, there's one more thing you gotta know about. This bed, it becomes a giant speaker. You can switch the stereo to output. There are exciters, they call them, on the inside panels of this bed. I can't really play anything here because I'd be breaking copyright laws one way, shape, or form, but trust me, it really has a good sounding bed speaker. The interior of the Ridgeline is almost identical to the Honda Pilot upon which it's based. There are a few differences here and there in switchgear, some of the controls, but it's virtually identical. So sitting here feels very much the same. You've got some very comfortable seats here. These are leather in this particular model, and they've got a nice firm but comfortable feel to them, and they do hold you pretty good. There's armrests here which fold down because the center console design is a little bit different than in most trucks as well as in most SUVs. It's actually low. There's not a big armrest up on top, but when you open it, there's actually a very large storage area down in here, even though it is down low. But the nice part is if you're a lady and you've got a big purse, it's a nice place to put that, or if you've got other things that you're bringing with you. Cup holders right here, up here in the front of the console, a nice big place for your phone, and all the outlets that you need to plug that into are right there. There's also a cubby here that can work for a phone or sunglasses, whatever might fit there. Center stack, very simply laid out. And with all of this, the material quality in here is very good. It's Honda. And I say that like, why wouldn't it be? But that really is the thing. Honda is known for making some of the best interiors in the business, and when it comes to material, fit, and finish, it really is quite the price of $42,000 as far as what it feels like. And the good news is, if you get the base model, quite a bit less money, you get this nice expensive feel here. Now, sitting here, the seating position, a little bit different than most mid-sized trucks. It's a little bit more like you're sitting down in a car. The hood you can see quite a bit of out there. It doesn't disappear like in some SUVs. The steering wheel has all the controls that you'd want on it right here. This is tilt and telescoping, but it is a manual adjustment. And the instrument cluster in front of me is a 2-dial design, actually 3, but it's a 2-circle design. In the center, a big information screen that you can customize with a whole lot of different information. Now, sitting back here in the rear seat of the Ridgeline isn't quite like sitting in the back seat of a Pilot. It is quite different, in fact. The first thing is, the seating position here is actually pretty high, a lot higher than it is in some of the mid-sized trucks out there. So, to me, it's a much more natural seating position. Now, I would say it would be more comfortable, but these are pretty flat and pretty stiff seats back here, so I really wouldn't want to sit back here for a very long time. That said, legroom's pretty good. These seats are about halfway forward, halfway back, so I will point out that if you had a tall driver up front, I'm 5'9", that's what this seat is set for. If they were much taller, I'd be starting to run out of some space back here. Good news is, headroom's still pretty good. There is one challenge getting in and out of this back seat. These doors are a little bit on the narrow side, and they don't open all that wide. You would think if they're going to be narrow, they'd really let those open up, maybe even like 90 degrees. But so if you're a really large person, getting in and out of the back seat might be a bit of a challenge, or just take a little bit of extra care. Once you're here, though, it's all good. There's a lot of amenities back here. You've got vents, and there are 2 USB ports too back here for charging. There's also a fold-down armrest in the middle. And when it comes to folding these seats, these lower cushions actually fold upward. There's a 60-40 split, so you can have one or the other. I've got one folded up there to show you, but you can fold them up together. And then you got a lot of space that you can use back here for big, tall boxes, TV boxes, things like that that you might get from the home store. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with this interior. I think it's definitely top of class when it comes to being modern, when it comes to having good ergonomics, high quality switchgear, and overall comfort. Oh, and lots of storage, probably more than you're going to find in any other mid-sized truck. The interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. Now, the infotainment system, on the other hand, is something we need to talk about because, well, let's hit the good parts first. It's got some very good looking graphics. The menus are very well laid out, easy to understand, and easy to dive into when you're going from one thing to the next. So if you're in navigation and you want to go to audio, you want to work with your phone, it's easy to move around and get to those things without having to spend a lot of time. And things like audio, your presets are right there when you want them. Now, the thing about the audio system is that there's no volume knob. There's no tuning knob. Now, we've talked about this with Hondas before, and almost every other auto journalist does. We're the only ones that don't seem to like that very much. But the fact of the matter is, when you're driving along, it's just much easier to reach over here and hit a knob than worry about tapping and swiping and doing this slide bar business that's very slow to respond. And that's part of the thing. It's not only the fact that there isn't a knob, but the slide bar on here, it just isn't easy to use. Now, I will concede there are buttons over here on the steering wheel, but sometimes you're turning and you're doing some other driving routines, and it would have been easier just to reach over here and hit a knob. So that's something I just have to sort of nibble at. Beyond that, the audio quality here is absolutely great. This is an awesome sounding audio system, probably one of the best in the mid-size class. The navigation system, also very easy to use. There's a lot of functionality here. Connectivity, very good. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Bluetooth. You've got plugs down there. So all of that stuff is very good. This really is a 5-star system, if not for the difficulty with some of the controls. 4 out of 5 stars. The 2017 Ridgeline is available in both all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive. This is an all-wheel drive model, but they all have the same engine, 3.5-liter direct-injected V6, 280 horsepower, and it comes exclusively with a 6-speed automatic transmission. In the all-wheel drive here, the EPA rates it at 18 mpg city, 25 mpg highway, and 21 mpg combined. I always ask, how does it go? Woo! Oh, that's got a nice little snap to it. Woo! And speeding. Okay, all right. Well, that's pretty snappy. Now, the first thing that really hits me is the fact that this transmission is on the job, man. You put your foot in it and it's down gearing. It's getting what it's it's getting its job done. It's getting what it's doing done. Look, good transmission. I'm really glad they stuck with a 6-speed here instead of putting in the 9-speed that's also available in the Pilot. This is just a much better sorted gearbox. It shifts better, it behaves better, and I think in this particular truck it's just absolutely fabulous. This engine, not the most high-tech V6 on the market. It's you know, been around for a while, but it is one of the more refined V6s out there, and because it now has direct injection, it does have more horsepower than it used to. Now, fuel economy, this is rated at 21 mpg combined. In my week with it, before all of this fooling around, I did achieve 20 mpg, and it did lean a little bit more city driving than highway, so I'm pretty impressed with it overall. It can tow 5,000 pounds, right around a 1,500 pound payload, which is right in the ballpark with many in class, but I do think when it comes to powertrain refinement, this is top of class. So I put the powertrain score at 5 of 5 stars. So the first thing I've got to get across here as we're starting to talk about ride and handling is the fact that this truck is entirely and completely different than anything else in the midsize truck class, and that's because obviously their body on frame, this is unibody construction, and that translates to a completely different feel. This feels just like a car or a crossover SUV in its solidity and its refinement. Independent suspension front and rear. Nobody else in class has that either, and so because of that, there's just a sense of dynamics here and a sense of handling that it just trumps everything else in class. I'm just going to put that right out there to start with. And how does it feel? Well, as you lay it into a curve, it's sharp, it's precise. When you go over bumpy roads or pavement that's got ripples in it, it doesn't have that jitteriness that you get with a solid axle, a body on frame vehicle. So those are just the first out of the gate things that really make this thing a nice driving vehicle. Out here on the highway, it's very quiet, very stable. I'm on a curvy road right here at speed. Allows nice confident cornering. Even though these aren't the grippiest tires in the world, it handles quite well. So out here on the pavement, it's a no-brainer that this is a vehicle that is very impressive, but it's off the pavement where pickup needs to shine. Now, I've never done this with a pickup truck before, but because this is kind of a crossover pickup, I want to do the mogul test here because a lot of people are really going to ask, is this really capable in the rough? Mogul test, I have one wheel up, one wheel back here, sort of hanging or with very little traction. It's something I do with SUVs and crossovers quite a bit. It's a good way to test the articulation of the all-wheel drive system to see if it can divvy up power to two wheels. Well, two wheels don't have traction. So what I'm going to do is down here on the center console, I've got a traction management selector. I'm going to put it down in sand because this little mogul here is actually, it's made of sand. So here we go. We're just going to roll up it nice and slow. And so what's going to happen here is I'm going to get into this little bit of a divot. That front wheel over there is going to be completely off the ground. And the rear wheel back here is going to be in a hole. A little further, a little further. All right. There we go. Now, that front wheel over there is completely hanging off the ground. Pretty visual, huh? So I'm going to lay into the throttle real slow. Wheel back there is not really getting very much traction. And look at that. It was able to divvy up the traction to the two wheels that had it and keep those wheels that didn't from spinning. Passes the test with flying colors. All right, well, we passed the mogul test. That means we go to the bonus round. And for me, that is the Washboard Road. Something a lot of people have been asking me, make sure you take that Ridgeline out on the Washboard Road. And it's because out here in the desert, this ribbed vibrating surface is a great way to see how well bolted together a vehicle is. It's not really hardcore off-roading, but this ribbed surface can really shake a vehicle down to its bolts. So what am I finding here? Well, first thing is, this does have a very solid structure. The suspension bolted together pretty tightly. I'm not getting very much in the way of looseness or shuddering, either in the suspension or in the steering. In that way, it's impressing me pretty well. But what I am getting is a lot of resonance through here, and over some of the ruts and bumps, a little bit of harshness. Now, The suspension itself and the steering, very well bolted together. I'm not getting any rattling or feeling a looseness there. It's very tight to the chassis. It's just that because it is tuned so tight for the road, it does tend to be a little bit harsh when you do hit the rougher stuff at speed. The other thing, a little bit of rattling in the interior trims here, nothing major. It's actually pretty common, but a little bit it is. So we get to go to bonus round 2. Out here on a little bit of a tighter trail, and again, this is not super duper off-roading, but this is a good way to see how maneuverable this vehicle is and how it can take something a little bit rougher. Just a little trail I like to bring a truck out to and an SUV. And the first thing I'm noticing is I can take this thing at quite a bit more speed than I can in a lot of vehicles that I brought out here because it doesn't beat me to death. It was a little bit harsher on the Washboard road, but out here, this thing's just got a nice tight maneuverability that gives you confidence to just kind of go a little bit faster. I like that. It's just, ooh, mud puddle. Whee! Anyway, I'm impressed. This is a nice off-road trail vehicle too, so not just for city slickers. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with the chassis. A little bit of harshness, but still pretty good. 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to quality, it's something very important to me, and I spend a lot of time going over these vehicles to see how well put together they are. How do the body panels align? What's the paint finish like? The interior materials? And here, this is a pretty well built vehicle. Now, the paint wasn't entirely perfect here. It might have been a pre-production model. Quite a few rattles on the inside when we got on the Washboard road, but other than that, it's still top of class when it comes to build quality and overall finish. So quality feel comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. On the topic of safety, the Honda Ridgeline has something no other truck in the midsize class offers, and that is a top Safety Pick Plus rating from the IIHS. And that's because it gets a good rating in all of their crash tests, but it also offers a superior level of crash prevention systems. And that would be the Honda Sensing Package, which not only has a suite of driver aids, but it has features like automatic emergency braking. Just to name a few. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Ridgeline. Obviously, I had fun with it, and I have to tell you, I was a little bit more impressed when I got off-road than I thought I'd be. And who would have thunk one of these things might actually look good muddy? That said, looking at the specs here, we're at $42,000 and some change. You can spend a little bit more if you get the black edition. When it comes to value, I really do think that this offers a lot for the money because there are things here that you simply cannot get in any of the competitors. I'm talking about driving character, refinement, not to mention feature content. So I put value very high at 5 stars. And when you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Very good. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. All right, so I've got one more bit of commentary to add here, and it's my big takeaway here because I've spent a lot of nights, a lot of dinners, journalists, friends, fellow YouTube viewers talking about, is that Ridgeline a real truck? I mean, who buys that thing? It's not a real truck, is it? I mean, believe it or not, that's often the question that comes around. People just have this mentality, that ain't no real truck, you can't haul nothing in it. Look, there are a lot of trucks for that guy. There aren't very many trucks for city folk. And let's be honest, this is a city truck. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people that live in suburbia, that live in urban areas that need a vehicle. They can go to the home store and get stuff. They go to the big box store and get big boxes. They need a vehicle they can use like a truck. But they don't want to live with one, right? They don't have to park a big truck. They don't want to have to put up with the handling deficits that even the best trucks have. The clunky, luggy, noisy, jittery, just all the stuff guys like. Well, most people don't really like that too much. We like cars that handle well, that feel a precision and that last, that when we go to the dealership, we get treated well, all of these things. Anyway, not to belabor it, I'm just trying to say that this is a truck that's going to appeal to a wide variety of people that most trucks don't. And so I think Honda's onto something here. Anyway, if you like the test drive you just saw, click on the round logo. If you want to see our newest test drive, click right there. By the way, stay tuned.